In order to master the Avatar state, you must open all the chakras. And tell me everything you know about chakras.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the most analyzed pieces of animated television ever made. People have written theses about it, built careers discussing it, rewatched it more times than they'd like to admit to a medical professional. I am one of those people. And after what I can only describe as an unreasonable number of rewatches, I think I finally understand what this show is actually about. Not on the surface level. That part is clear, the classic hero's journey. But underneath that, the show has a theme. One consistent, quietly radical idea that runs through every major character arc, every turning point, every moment that made you feel something. Avatar: The Last Airbender is about letting go. Not in a vague, inspirational poster sense, in a precise and deliberately constructed sense. The biggest moments in this show, the ones that define characters, shift the story, and hit you somewhere you didn't know you were vulnerable, almost never come from a character gaining something. They come from a character releasing something. Today we're going to trace that theme through the show's core characters, and by the end, I promise you, you're going to see the show differently, even if you've already seen it 1,000 times. Before we get to the characters, we need to establish the philosophical foundation on which the show builds everything: air. Of the 4 elements, airbending is the one most explicitly tied to a spiritual philosophy. The air nomads lived by a set of principles centered on freedom and detachment from earthly desires. They didn't accumulate and were basically wanderers by design. The show uses airbending philosophy as the lens through which its entire thematic argument is made. Consider how the Avatar state works. In the Season 2 episode, The Guru, Aang wants to master the Avatar state to save the world. But Guru Pathik tells him that in order to unlock cosmic energy, he has to open his chakras and let go of his earthly attachments. Specifically, he has to let go of Katara. Aang hates this. We hate this. But the show is making a brilliant point. The Avatar doesn't access that power by force of will, but by release, by surrendering control. You cannot wield the universe's energy if your fists are clenched, holding on to your own desires. The show tells you this in the first season and then spends 3 seasons proving it through every major character. In some characters, it arrives early. In others, it takes 3 seasons of painful, costly resistance, but it arrives for all of them. Aang is 12 years old, the last airbender, and the Avatar. He carries the weight of a genocide he couldn't prevent and a destiny he wasn't ready for. He is also, fundamentally, a child who just wants his world back. And that desire, to hold on to the life and the identity that was taken from him, is the source of every significant mistake he makes across the show's 3 seasons. As we learn in the episode The Storm, Aang ran when the monks told him he would be declared the Avatar early, before the traditional age. Not out of cowardice, but out of fear of losing himself. That act of running, of refusing to let go of his ordinary life in favor of his destiny, led directly to his suspension in ice for 100 years while the world burned. When he wakes up, he carries survivor's guilt that manifests as attachment. He holds on to his identity as a monk, as someone whose culture and values are the only things that survived the century he missed, because if he abandons it, what is left of who he was? His biggest conflict in the final season crystallizes around one point: killing Ozai. Every spiritual teacher he consults tells him it must be done. The logic of the world demands it, but Aang refuses. He eventually lets go of the need to solve the problem on his own terms, and in that moment of surrender, the answer arrives. Aang's arc was never really about gaining power. He is already the most powerful being from episode 1. His arc is about releasing his grip on the identity he fled into that iceberg with. The monk, the child, the boy who ran. And accepting the full weight of who he is without losing what makes him Aang. Zuko is the show's most complex character, and its most instructive one. He is proof that knowing the right thing and doing the right thing are 2 completely different acts, and that the distance between them is measured entirely in what you're willing to release. His arc spans 3 full seasons. It is slow, painful, and backtracks in ways that are genuinely difficult to watch. And it is one of the most carefully constructed character transformations in the history of animated television. Everything about Zuko is defined by what was taken from him and what he is trying to get back. His honor, his place in the Fire Nation, his father's approval. In Zuko's mind, they are all the same thing, and Ozai's acknowledgement is what makes him real. He believes that if he captures the Avatar, his father will love him, and that single achievement will retroactively repair a relationship that was broken long before he was even scarred. Book 2 is where the show tests Zuko most severely. Stripped of his title, his ship, his mission, and eventually his uncle, the one person who offers him unconditional love without requiring anything in return, Zuko is left with nothing but himself. And he doesn't know who that is without the chase. In the Season 2 finale, The Crossroads of Destiny, Zuko is faced with a tough choice. He thought he let his old dreams go, but suddenly there's a chance to get it all. And he actually does. After a life filled with Fire Nation propaganda and desperation to be loved by his father, he eventually achieves his dream only to realize that's not who he is. His true turning point happens in the episode The Day of Black Sun when he confronts his father. The moment he lets go of his need to be accepted, he finally finds peace. Zuko's transformation is the show's central proof of its theme. He holds on longer than anyone. He pays more for holding on than anyone. And when he finally releases, he becomes the person he was always capable of being. Katara is the show's emotional anchor. Warm, protective, and the one who holds the group together through sheer force of will and care. But beneath the surface, she is also carrying something dangerous: rage. Katara's mother was killed by a Fire Nation soldier when Katara was a child. This is the wound at the center of her character. And everything she does, the protectiveness, the inability to let people she loves face danger alone, traces back to that moment. For most of the show, this manifests as strength. But Book 3 confronts what happens when Katara finally comes face to face with the man who killed her mother. In the episode The Southern Raiders, Katara discovers the identity of her mother's killer and sets out to find him. Zuko goes with her, Aang asks her to forgive, and Katara tells him, with complete clarity, that his philosophy is not hers. When she finds the soldier, now an old man, broken, barely recognizable as the monster she has built in her memory, something shifts. She looks at him and understands that killing him will not bring her mother back, and it will not fill the hole in her heart. She lets go of revenge, not because she forgives him, but because holding on to it was destroying her. This distinction between releasing revenge and releasing grief is one of the most emotionally sophisticated things Avatar ever does. It refuses the easy moral that forgiveness heals all wounds. Instead, it argues that holding on to revenge is a way of staying close to the pain, of keeping the loss fresh, of maintaining a connection to what was taken, and that releasing revenge is not betrayal, but rather survival. Every other character in Avatar has to learn to let go throughout the show. Toph arrives already having done it, which makes her not just a fascinating character, but a living demonstration of what the theme looks like when it's been fully realized. She is 12 years old, blind, and the greatest earthbender alive.
I am the greatest earthbender in the world! Don't you two dunderheads ever forget it!
Her parents spent her entire life deciding who she was. A fragile, sheltered daughter who needed protection. Meanwhile, Toph was secretly winning underground earthbending tournaments. She had already rejected their version of her. She just hadn't said it out loud yet. When she joins Team Avatar, she walks away from her family's expectations with the clear understanding that the life her parents have mapped out for her is not hers, and that no amount of love on their part makes it fit. Her metal bending breakthrough also says a lot. It comes from her willingness to perceive what others cannot. She feels the impurities in metal that other earthbenders dismiss. She let go of the established definition of what Earth is and discovered something new on the other side. Toph is the show's proof that letting go isn't always anguish. Sometimes it's clarity. And her strength isn't despite her blindness. It's partly because of it. She perceives the world without the visual assumptions everyone else carries. She has, by necessity, let go of the world as it appears and learned to live in the world as it actually is.
Sorry, little lady, but... Huh?
I won!
In a world where power is measured in elements, Sokka is the one who cannot bend anything, and he feels it every single day. His entire arc across 3 seasons is a quiet, persistent negotiation with one question: am I enough without the thing everyone else has? From the beginning, Sokka compensates. He insists on being the leader, the strategist, the one with the map, out of terror that if he isn't useful in every moment, he isn't necessary at all. The Kyoshi warriors strip that away early. He arrives expecting to teach them. He thinks being a man and a warrior means acting tough and never asking for help. He eventually ends up being schooled by fighters who are better than him, and he has to let go of the pride that told him being the strongest man in the room was the same thing as being the best leader. Sokka's master is the episode that resolves his arc completely. He seeks out Piandao and trains under him. Piandao teaches Sokka that his greatest strength is his creativity, his ability to solve problems nobody else can solve because he doesn't see the world the way benders do. Sokka has to let go of the belief that not bending makes him lesser, that his value to the group is conditional and built entirely on competence, because competence is the only currency he has in a world that rewards bending. The Boiling Rock episode is Sokka's proof of concept. He plans and executes one of the most complex operations in the entire series, a prison break from a supposedly inescapable Fire Nation facility, using nothing but his mind. Sokka's letting go is perhaps the most universally human one in the show. He lets go of the belief that he is not enough, and discovers that the thing he was compensating for was never actually a weakness. The group's non-bender eventually becomes its most indispensable strategist. Aang, Zuko, Katara, Toph, Sokka. 5 characters, 5 demonstrations of what becomes available on the other side of letting go. But the theme is only complete when we see its opposite. When we see what happens when someone refuses, absolutely, to let go of anything at all. Azula is Avatar's most tragic character. Not its saddest, that's debatable, but its most tragic in the classical sense. A figure of extraordinary capability destroyed not by external forces, but by the internal logic of who she chose to be. She is Zuko's sister, Ozai's favorite, prodigiously gifted and in complete, total, annihilating control at all times. The Beach is the episode that begins to show the cracks in Azula. Stripped of her title and placed in a social situation she cannot tactically dominate, she reveals something she has kept buried under every performance of superiority. She does not know who she is when she is not in control. She holds on to perfection because perfection cannot be criticized. She holds on to fear, commanding it in others, refusing to feel it herself, because fear, felt inward, would mean she is vulnerable. Her breakdown in the finale is the inevitable consequence of a structure that was always going to fail. She has built her identity on control over others, so when Mei and Ty Lee eventually choose themselves over her, the foundation cracks even more. When Ozai leaves for his conquest and demotes her to a mere title, not a mission, an honor that removes her from the fight, the cracks become a fracture. She starts seeing her mother in the mirror, the person who saw through the performance, the person whose love Azula wanted and has spent her entire life simultaneously seeking and destroying every substitute for. By the time she faces Zuko and Katara in the comet's light, she is not the Azula we've watched dominate every room. She is a person who held on so hard to so much for so long, she eventually shatters. She cannot bend, so she breaks. Azula is the show's negative proof. She demonstrates what happens when the thing you're clinging to, control, power, the performance of invulnerability, is also the thing slowly suffocating you. She is a deeply damaged person who was never given a safe place to be uncertain, to be less than perfect, and who built a fortress around that wound so impenetrable that by the end, even she couldn't find the way out. Every major character in Avatar: The Last Airbender faces the exact same choice. Hold on and break, or let go and grow. The show frames all of this through the lens of a children's adventure, a young boy learning elements, and a group of friends saving the world. It's genuinely brilliant, but it is also something else. Something that explains why adults rewatch it as many times as children do. Why it hits differently at 25 than it did at 12. It's because the thing it's actually about is not fictional. Avatar asks, across 3 seasons and 61 episodes, one question in different voices and different contexts. What are you holding on to that's holding you back? And it answers it the same way every time, with a release. It's a story teaching us that letting go doesn't make you weaker. In the end, it is the only thing that actually gives you true control. So, the greatest animated series ever made is not, at its core, about becoming powerful enough to save the world. It's about becoming free enough to do so.
Perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love.
Without the Avatar state, what if I'm not powerful enough?
I don't know the answer. Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.